All right, hey Internet, I'm Chaz.
And I'm Dan. Welcome to Wine is Serious Business, episode 299 today, running into 300 with a couple of great guests. We've got Tom and Kate from Division Winemaking Company, Southeast Wine Collective here today. Was talking to Tom a little bit earlier in the month, and he mentioned that he's got some new Gamays coming out, and we're like, let's do a show. Let's talk about Gamay wine. So we got a very special bottle here today. So why don't we talk about that? Let us know what that is first. We'll get into more discussion after this wine.
Well, we have a 1996 Seven Springs Gamay from Amity Vineyards, and this was made by Myron Redford, who is a legend in the Oregon winemaking industry. He started Amity, I believe, in 1976, and started making Gamay in 1978, the first that we know of in the state. And Myron sold the Amity Vineyards about 2 years ago, and he, a few years before that, planted another vineyard with his partner. That's the Redford Weddell Vineyard in the old Amity Hills. And Kate and I are fortunate enough to purchase some of the Gamay fruit for the Division Winemaking Company brand. And so this last week, when we were meeting with Myron to go over the wines and to chat about the future, because we were both very excited about continuing to work with him, he sent me home with this. And it's so rare that Gamay is still pretty rare in Oregon in the Willamette Valley, but to have a perfectly conditioned bottle from the 90s from this great Seven Springs vineyard. Yeah. What a great way to start off a Gamay night.
Yeah, it's almost old enough to drink.
Yes, it's almost. I think it smells pretty good right now. It reminds me of some of the qualities of the old Beaujolais we had when we were there.
So when Tom and I were living in the Beaujolais and working there, when we were learning how to make wine, we had the fortune of being able to taste through cellars with some winemakers in Fleury. So the Levis brothers. We got to open Gamays from our birth years, so 78 and 81. They were incredible, and I think blind, you would be hard-pressed to guess what varietal it was. I mean, it just refined and beautiful with bright acidity. It had this amazing Burgundian tone to them also, but such vivacity, so alive, and that's definitely from that acid that Gamay carries, that it carried throughout its life.
Mineral component, I think, too, from there, and Gamay and Pinot Noir being first cousins, and obviously a lot of Beaujolais producers using a lot more whole cluster carbonic influence in the wine that really tends to wear off as the wine ages.
Okay.
And when Kate was saying we tasted these old ones, I had always kind of thought that Gamay was something you just kind of
popped and drank, right?
Right.
And that was,
And they pushed that image too, right?
Because it was an economic image that sold, especially with Nouveau wines.
And I think that worked out for them in the 80s and 90s, and it really came back to bite them in the 2000s with the downturn in the economy. Nobody really wanted to buy any of their possible Gamay. So, but it's turned around since, which is so exciting. The Beaujolais region is really having a huge comeback, a revival, and it's exciting to watch.
Yes, those wines were not, that were incorrectly associated with the Cru Beaujolais that were made. Yeah. Incorrectly so. I mean, those wines age so delicately and deliciously. Yeah. And Myron's wine here, just from the first, we opened the bottle less than 10 minutes ago, and I am really impressed with what Oregon's potential is for creating world-class wine.
This is aged. This is wonderful now.
I love the nose. Great complexity, right? You got like a good sense of roses there. A little bit of dried cherries, a little bit of dirt, and then
a little bit of that plummy kind of stuff coming along.
Yeah,
but not rich. It's like light, but has that age comp.
There's like a zest to it. There's orange zest or something really bright and a little bit citrusy. Yeah. So almost like a cranberry chutney type deal. Do you know what I mean? It's like it has that sort of liveliness to it.
Okay.
A little bit of spice too, like cardamom or something like that. Great complexity. Again, for a 20-year-old Gamay from Oregon, awesome. I would never guess. Yeah.
It's delicious.
So it'll all be downhill from here. Sorry, guys.
It's all right. We're moving on to fresh. Thank you for sharing this little bit of history with us. Really, 'cause,
Yeah.
Thank you to Myron for
how many of these bottles
sharing.
exist?
Thank you, Myron
right?
Redford.
Like
Well, he
probably.
has an incredible cellar of Oregon history.
And it really is Oregon history.
Yeah.
That was my first time in Myron's basement, and I was just like, you just see like every year cataloged, and it goes
Awesome.
back into the mid '70s, and you're just like, wow.
He really is kind of like an archivist in the bottle too, right?
Yes,
like
100%.
he kept so many of his experiments in bottle
Yeah.
and took such good care of all this stuff that
Yeah, and you know it's interesting that you say that, because when I was leaving, Myron was apt to say, he's like, hey, you know, I did all these experiments where
Yeah.
I did 4 or 5 years of a vineyard with different clones and da 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 da. He's like, you know, if you ever just want to have some winemakers or some people interested in the wine industry come up and sit down and, you know, go through, you know, 3 or 4 years of those of the same clone from the same vineyard and just to see what it's like. He's like, I would love to do that. He just seems to be in that role now where he just wants to kind of give what he has learned along the way, and he's got these wines that would be so beneficial to both winemakers like ourselves and consumers and understanders like you guys. And you know, it's a nice piece of history to kind of connect with.
cool.
This is starting to show classic Oregon white pepper on the end of mouth that Oregon Gamay can have many of the years, and especially in a cooler year too. So
I wouldn't worry about aging this longer either.
I wouldn't either.
This is
He told me this year kind of sucked too. He's like,
it's super imbalanced, just really nice and light and fresh, but still shows some of that age, right? It's like somewhere in between.
it's delicious.
Yeah, totally
Yeah.
killer.
Interesting, educational. Thanks again. Thanks, Byron, for sharing that. If you ever see
Yeah,
this,
absolutely.
We'll show it to him. How about
yeah,
that?
we'll see
yeah.
if he understands Facebook, and we'll try to.
Was Myron the first one to plant Gamay in Oregon?
He didn't plant this. He was purchasing this from the Seven Springs Vineyard, which I
Yeah.
think was the Anden family that did that, or was
See, like the internet told me that he was the first one to graft Gamay in the Seven Springs Vineyard.
well then
But
I could have it totally
That's
wrong.
the internet. The internet sometimes lies to you.
100%
No,
right. What are
you
talking
could
about?
be 100%. I
Yeah.
did not get into that with him, and I don't know enough of the history, but
His name came up when I searched the history of Gamay in Oregon.
Huh.
So yeah.
he said on
was the
his own
first one that came
personal
up.
site he really struggled with it, but that
Okay.
he told me that he really liked purchasing the Gamay from this site because he was able to make really nice wines with it. But on the Amity Vineyard, the small amount of Gamay he had there, that it was very variable with vintages and trying to get it
Okay.
ripe.
Cool.
All right.
Awesome.
I can attest though that the 2015 one that we got from this vineyard, his new vineyard, was really delicious.
Killer. All right.
Yeah.
We'll talk about that as we move on.
Yeah.
Why don't you tell us about wine number 2?
Oh, wine number 2. Perfect. So Gamay Rosé. So when go for it. Yeah,
Yeah,
it's
let's
great.
go for it. Yeah.
Yep. I'll drink it, I guess.
Yeah.
It's very
So when Tom and I were learning how to make wine, one of the places we staged and worked was at Domaine Sauvin in the Haute-Loire in Auvergne, and the rosé that we made was rosé of Gamay. So this is something in terms of a rosé that's really near and dear to our heart, something I say often. And we made it, the first vintage we ever made in 2009 was direct press. So this is exactly the same. This is direct pressed fruit. But this fruit is actually from Yakima. Tom and I
Quite a
have
find? That's
quite a
cool.
find.
Yeah.
It's the vineyard where we were sleuthing for our Chenin.
Sure.
And turns out he also had some Gamay planted, which is awesome for us.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So this is some of the first fruit that we pick each year. You can talk a little bit more about. So it's from Willard Vineyard.
And you pick it for rosé?
Yeah.
You know that's what's
Exactly.
going to happen to it right
Directly.
away? All right.
We dedicate it was, you know, you wouldn't think about this in the Yakima, but
This one's awesome.
we were quite enamored with how a little history on the wine. We went there looking, as Kate was saying, for Chenin Blanc, old line Chenin Blanc. There's none left in Oregon, so we had to expand the search out a little bit longer. We wanted to see if Chenin Blanc could be made artisanally and really good quality here. And when we met Jim Willard and, you know, walked the vines and saw how he was farming it, we were really impressed. And he started to rattle off all these other grapes he had that he was hoping to sell.
and Gamay came
it was
up.
Malbec and Cab Sauv
Lot
and
of
Syrah
Riesling.
and Merlot, and we
Sure,
were just kind of
and
like, yeah, those are nice, not really our thing. And And he's like, and I got this Gamay. And I'm like, Gamay? What the hell do you have Gamay for? And he was like, well, he's like, I got this friend. He was from Beaujolais. He really missed home, and he wanted this plant. So I planted these couple acres of Gamay, and we just kind of find a home for it every year. And it's only been fruiting for a couple of years. So it's very relatively young.
Relatively young. So the first vintage that we made of this, we made just, we made a little bit of Gamay Rosé from the Methven family vineyard one year. So we made like maybe 15 cases for us to drink ourselves, max. And then we made about 80 cases the next year and just over 100 cases the year after that. And then for 2015, Tom and I were sitting there doing our planning. We're like, we love Gamay Rosé. I think it's the perfect varietal to make rosé with. Because again, it has that beautiful fruit basis that you're looking for, but then it always has acid to match, and it
got
carries
killer acid.
and it carries minerality, and it does, and it just radiates those in the best way possible.
Right.
So we went big this year. We actually made over 500 cases of this year,
Nice.
which is a huge jump for us. I mean, we
Yeah.
make under 4,000 cases of wine. And so it's one of our largest cuvées, one of our largest wines, and we're really excited. It turned out awesome. Well, if I do say so myself, because I do love this wine. So
Yeah, no, it was a fun wine to make. Other folks you guys know well, Tuttles, were instrumental in giving us the confidence that you could make a nice amount of rosé and actually sell it. It's one of those things when we first started doing it, we did it because we really love rosé, and especially Gamay rosé.
Yeah.
well, I would say we started making rosé here in Oregon when we first moved from
Yeah.
Europe, because rosé is just part of the culture. And we've seen it take off here in Oregon in the last 6-7 years. It's really
Absolutely.
become, everybody makes a rosé now. And for me, that's
And
really
a lot more people drink
a lot
rosé.
more, it's 365. It's every single day of the year you can drink it. The sun peeks out a little bit, and it's great. It's great with turkey, Thanksgiving.
Totally.
It's great all the time.
It's great all the time.
So the culture
I
has
could drink
changed.
this all the
time. Rosé
Yeah,
all day.
all the time. Rosé all day, exactly. I think there's a hashtag that says that,
Hashtag
actually.
rosé all day. Make sure you remember that.
But literally, we've seen the consumer become really excited about it, and we've also seen wineries grow the demand, or grow their production to meet the demand, rather. And for us, Gamay made total sense for being our sort of larger production and one of our flagship rosés. So
And I get very excited when I hear about wineries that pick grapes and are making the wine intentionally as rosé. A lot of times, I suppose most people watching this know, but a lot of times rosé will be a byproduct, right? They're going to Saignée off of, kind of a bigger, higher end wine that's intended to be a little heavier, a little darker. And it can still turn out well, but it's a lot more exciting when somebody's, they show you the bottle and like, this is what we wanted from the beginning.
Well, you just said actually like the magic words right there, and the word itself, Saignée, is not so much what we consider to be like the bad part of that. The problem is when you farm the grapes and pick the grapes to make a fine red wine.
Yeah.
Those are not necessarily
The
the
best
right
gr-
equilibrium
to make a rosé.
to make a fine rosé, which is essentially a white wine and drag.
Sure.
And
I don't have a problem with that.
yeah. So when we made these wines, the Gamay Rosé especially, we're dedicating that site, and
It's
and it's
purposeful.
farmed and it's picked more like they're white grapes sitting on there than they are red grapes.
Okay.
And it just happens to be a red grape. But we do this because that freshness and that vibrancy and that kind of nerve and energy that you get is really hard to capture on a Saignée that is been farmed for a red grape.
I
And
feel
it's
like
just-
it's hard to capture across the board. And you nailed it in this one. I think it's
thank you.
I think
Totally
it's
nailed
really
it.
there. It's so alive, both on the nose and the palate,
I
that
think, and it has a freshness. There's a little
Yeah.
candied note to it, which is really pleasing too. And it makes me want to keep drinking. I think the thing that's important with
I could
rosé
crush
is
a
you want to
bottle
drink
of
the
this, no
whole bottle
problem.
and then maybe drink
And
another
then
one
only
after
at
that.
12%, you'll be just fine.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah.
I mean, they do it in France all the time. Why shouldn't we? So, but that's the thing, is that it should be. I mean, it's supposed to be quaffable. It's supposed to be something that just you drink and you just enjoy, and then you reach for another. So.
retail price on this?
$18.
Nice, yeah. If I honestly, I feel like every year there's one or two rosés that I get really excited about, and I also feel like it rotates year to year. Like that's one of
Yeah.
the few wines that I don't feel like the same producer makes the one I love every year.
It's true.
This is my rosé from 2015 so far,
It's early yet, though.
It's still early. There's more coming, but I'm feeling the love.
Awesome,
Thank you.
thank
And,
you.
and you know, we became really excited about this wine too. You know, it was one of those things where we, you know, I mean, for those who do care about things like this, you know, we picked some of the grapes ahead of time, and we started the fermentation in a style called Pied de Cuve ahead of time, where it built up at our house. And when that got going, it was smelling great. That's what we used as the inoculant, and this really just had a very nice fermentation
People
the
had
whole way
fermented for a
through.
month. It was just really steady.
Longer.
Maybe
Yeah,
five
5
weeks.
weeks, yeah.
5 weeks, about a month. And it was always that ferment that Tom and I would check out, and we're like, oh, this is going great. Like, don't worry about this one.
Awesome.
And then we'd sort of pull off a little bit of juice to taste, and it was always in a really good place. So it's really fun to dedicate grapes to a program, to increase your production, and then for it to go well. It's like, as a winemaker,
and
it's like a
I
dream
guess-
come true.
That's right. And guess what I was getting at was we didn't have to do anything to the wine.
We didn't have to do
This was a
anything to the wine.
wine that
It
was
just made
like,
itself.
It did
So.
its own thing. And you were so right when you say, like, you know, the rosés every year. There are rosés I seem to fall for every year that kind of come in through the various importers and friends and folks. And I was like, oh man, that's the one I ended up just like pounding all summer.
Yeah.
And then it just seems to kind of change up a little bit, you know. And I mean, I hope for our own sake we're able to keep doing it, but but I mean, at the same time, it was really nice to be happy with what we came up with this year.
But I think if a consumer is looking for a varietal that they like to see a rosé from, Gamay Rosé is oftentimes just excellent. I think that it's if you're a rosé lover and you want to try the different varietals, if you want to try Gamay Rosés, I have yet to be disappointed by a Gamay Rosé. So
Cool. Well,
Yeah.
here's your chance. That's good. And
We're moving on.
we're moving on.
we're moving on. We're moving on, and
Bottoms
that,
up.
that gives me something to talk about too. So you guys, we're among the earlier ones to start making quantities of Gamay and getting it out, especially kind of to the national market and talking about it a lot more. And I think in some ways you're probably, well, obviously if you're getting wine from Yakima, you're kind of victims of your own success. Where I think Gamay in Oregon is hard to find now.
It's a little hard, but there's some being planted, which is nice. And
That's
then
great.
There's actually some vineyards that are coming online. What's exciting is there's actually Bjornson Vineyard, which is in the Yola Amity Hills. The first
Sure.
year of fruit being viable is actually in this bottle of Petits Fers, which we're going to try last.
Fantastic.
So it's exciting, and I think that actually Gamay grows amazingly well in the Willamette Valley. It is perfectly suited for our weather conditions. It's of course, as we mentioned, a cousin of Pinot Noir, so it thrives on the same things that Pinot loves, but then it's more hardy. It has a little bit of a thicker skin. It's not as temperamental. When the weather gets a little bit crappy, it doesn't care. If the weather gets a little bit hot, it doesn't care. It's just a lot more sturdy a varietal, and so especially in warmer years or cooler years in
Yeah.
Oregon, it does so well, which is it's really fun to work with that way.
I feel like after, 10, 15 years go by, it's going to be one of the standby grapes. What really drove that point home to me is I was talking to my Jess Pierce, a friend of mine, and it was like, man, yeah, I've really been loving the Gamays from Oregon lately. They've been a lot of fun. She's like, have you ever had a bad one? And I think about it for 10 seconds. I'm like, whoa,
Never,
I
right?
haven't. And I can't say that about any other variety. But across a range of price points, a number of different producers, Gamay from Oregon is working.
I have felt the same way as you, and I think that a lot of that, is that, like Kate was saying, that this grape is so suitable to this area, and I would have to say that I also feel like that, there's not a lot of us yet, but that you were very kind to say that we've helped lead the way, but there's been a few others that have really helped lead the Gamay, bandwagon as well.
So Doug Tennell at Brick House.
Yeah, Doug Tennell
with
at Brick
some incredible
House, and
Gamay.
Scott Dana Frank,
was the first
Bow
one I
and
was introduced to.
Arrow,
At
and
Bow and Arrow, and then actually Chehalem, so Wynn
Yeah.
and her father make Gamay at Chehalem, at Seven Springs. I mean,
so yeah, it's been around, but the thing about all these names is these are people who generally make very good wines, period.
Good, yeah,
And-
good shout outs. Love the shout outs.
And these are at least winemakers I typically think make good wines, and
Yeah.
they love working with the grape.
yeah, so it's proof positive, I think, that it's more than capable here, and that there is a future for it. And we are excited to be a part of that.
Yeah.
And I think that we will continue to see that. And that is one of the. I mean, we're going into James Rahn's wine here, and James is not only a winemaker, but he's a sommelier and wine director for the
Sommelier of the year, too.
yeah, for the
Awesome.
Heathman.
Yeah.
Nice.
And so being able to see what others have done, I think is pretty cool.
And James has been working with you here at the collective for 2 or 3 years.
This is
His third year.
Third
Yeah.
year.
So you've been able to kind of taste.
No, this
the
is
journey
only
too, but-
this is his first Gamay.
Oh.
First
So
Gamay.
the first year he was
Okay.
with us, he
He only
did
made white wines.
Riesling.
Mhm.
Yeah. And this was his first Gamay, and his next one is actually going to be bottled in about a week or 2 with us.
And he's actually expanded, so he's so he made Gamay as one of his as his red varietal for his second year, and in his third he made Gamay and Pinot Meunier and the little
Okay,
Pinot Noir
nice.
also. So it's exciting to watch him expand too, and also fun to see a different interpretation on Gamay, a different vineyard too, which is exciting.
Havlin.
What's the vineyard?
We have not
Oh.
worked with Havlin.
You have it.
Okay.
So this fruit came in, and actually, so there's various clones of Gamay that are planted in the Willamette Valley. So some are more along the Beaujolais, and the majority are more Loire-esque. And
Okay.
this is some Gamay that I had never seen Gamay fruit like this. Much smaller berry. Just really, really interesting and curious and delicious, but still exhibits those characteristics. And I'm not sure which clone exactly it is, and I'm not sure that James knows either. But there are variations within Gamay, which is also a really exciting thing. Clones from the Loire taste different from clones from the Beaujolais, taste different from this clone, whatever it is. And so there's just nuance within it also, which, as a Pinot lover, you know that there's difference between those clones too. And as you get into Gamay, there's so much to discover that way also.
I'd love to hear what your guys' opinion are.
All right.
'Cause This is totally new for me too.
It's a lot bigger on the nose. I'm getting
Yeah.
like blackberry or raspberry
Intense
candies,
berry.
like maybe a little bit of chocolate even, like little chocolate.
Reminds me of honestly, red vines, like red vine
Sure.
candy.
Yeah.
Candy, yeah.
Big time red vine candy on the nose, along with the blackberry fruit, but then hints of something herbal like rosemary as well.
I saw something herbal there too.
Yeah, it smells cool. It's kind of
That,
all over the place.
intense berry action though. That's almost like freeze dried berries.
Okay.
Sure, I can see that where it's kind of concentrated.
It's
It's definitely
concentrated,
strong.
and it
Yeah.
has that freeze dried tingle too,
Whoa.
which is amazing, right? Such freshness.
The acidity really gives you a pop here too.
I just looked over there and I saw 3.17 pH, and I was like, wow, there's some acid in this
No one
wine.
needs to brush their teeth tonight. We're
Yeah,
all
fantastic.
So initially I'd said something about licorice on the nose. There's none of that in the palate here.
No,
Right?
there's a little bit of licorice on the nose, and it's actually it's actually increasing a little bit, but not
On the nose, but not on the
not
palate.
on the palate at all. It's much brighter than that.
Totally.
Yeah.
Not really rich, just really, really fresh berry fruit.
All
cherries.
kinds of fruit.
Yeah.
When you
So
think
much
of,
fruit.
When you think of Gamay, and when you
Yeah.
think of what people think of Gamay is that fruit forwardness oftentimes.
Sure.
But that's only one aspect of it too. And I think what Tom and I really love and why we make so many different kinds of Gamay is it has such range. You can make a rosé that's absolutely gorgeous. You can make a fruit forward, acid-based, beautiful, bright, everyday wine, maybe to serve with a touch of a chill on it. And then you can also make a cru, which has more shoulders, blue fruited, a little bit
Right.
more depth. So to play around with those aspects too.
And I love drinking it. I love the decision to have more acidity in here because if this were more of a round wine texturally, I think the fruit would overwhelm it. It'd be pretty awkward. But as it is,
I think you're talking to a couple of acid hounds here, though.
yeah.
Sure.
But I think they play so
They
well
really
together. Yeah.
really well
Yeah.
together.
It's
for
strong,
sure.
but it's not overwhelming at all.
No,
Right.
it's not. I agree 100% that it is not like, oh wow, this is too much.
And I'm often one of those guys who will call that out, where it's man, this is just too much acid for me. I can't do it. And this is not.
It's making
I don't
me
have a
dream
problem.
of having a
It's the
picnic.
intensity of the rest of the wine that I think really balances that.
And there's a really soft tannin up front. It's like coating the front of my teeth, and it's just in the beginning. And it's that softness from fruit, but it's also a touch of soft tannin that's giving that
Agreed.
balance too.
It's almost like soft tan that you'd expect from like skins of some other fruit. Like it could be almost anything, like cherries or something at that point.
I think
Interesting.
you're right.
Yeah.
Almost like sour cherry, though.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, agreed.
And this would be so
Cool-
great
cool
with
wine.
like some shortbreads as an after dinner course or something like that. Little cookies.
Shortbreads is an after dinner course. I love the way you think.
Okay. like those little cookies, right? Those little cookies. And yeah.
I think the Gamay also goes with every occasion, which is why it's sort of gaining in popularity too, is that it's a wine that you can bring to the table and everybody likes it because it has some of the lightness that you're looking for in maybe in Pinot-esque style wines.
Sure.
But then it has more fruit, more texture, more acid. So it's a little bit bolder that way without being heavy. So it's sort of this great across the board wine too.
Super accessible, I think.
Super accessible,
Yeah.
yeah.
Cool. That was fun to taste.
Yeah, it's a good wine.
Yeah, and I
Cheers,
don't
James.
know if I've had one like it. So it's and it's
absolutely.
great to hear that they're it's a unique clone too. Because that's
Well, we'll have to. I think it'll be interesting to learn a little bit more about Havlin because I don't know much about that vineyard.
So we're moving into wine number 4 here. You can introduce it after a moment, or maybe it's part of the answer. But is all this from Oregon? All the fruit here?
Yeah.
It is 100% Oregon, 4 different vineyards.
Yeah, 3 different vineyards from the Willamette Valley and 1 from the Umpqua.
Which one in the Umpqua?
Wow.
This is
Quaiding?
Rebecca's vineyard.
Rebecca. Okay.
So Rebecca's vineyard is, it's technically in the Umpqua, but it is so far north and west and up in elevation.
What city?
Is
it
it
here?
Elkton?
Okay, yeah.
Yeah.
I'm from Roseburg originally.
Okay, so you kind of know where this is.
Yeah.
It's sitting up at about 1,000 feet. You know, it's as wet and cold as the Willamette in this spot. And
Sure.
Yeah.
although it is the Umpqua and people think warm and
Yeah,
most of the
warmer.
vineyards of Valley
Right.
floor near Roseburg where you're from,
Yeah.
which is is significantly warmer than where this is. And this is actually a site we actually fight to get ripe every year. This is Old Vine Gamay that was planted in 1987 and
Nice.
Crap.
own rooted.
I love that people were doing that out there. It's like basically halfway between the coast and the center of Oregon, right?
Pretty much, you're exactly right.
But I
Yeah.
think that what we also have to remember is though Pinot Noir has become such the dominant grape in Oregon, that back when people were planting 50 years ago, people were planting a little bit of everything. And I think in that sort of way to discover what it was that was going to grow well here. And so there are these pockets that were planted in the last 40 years, 50 years, that basically people were just trying different things, like maybe this will work, maybe that'll work.
Sure.
And as our more popular grapes sort of became dominant and became part of it, we stopped talking maybe about some of these lesser known varietals, but they're still there.
Yeah.
And what's really exciting for Tom and I as winemakers is to be able to sort of bring those back and to maybe bring them to our forefront and take them in a direction that is sort of part of the new Oregon. So it's really exploring all these beautiful varietals that are grown here and celebrating them too. So Oregon's an incredible growing region. We're really lucky.
It is.
Pretty wild.
And
yeah.
Yeah.
and I agree with you 100%. But the funny thing about this one is, Sophie Lara, who runs this vineyard, she didn't know what Gamay was. Her son just happened to really like it and force her into growing it in the 80s.
But it's awesome.
But that's great, and I also love that, like those stories are definitely going away. Like that's something that people, like there's a personal connection to it. It's kind of a unique location for a vineyard. Some interesting grapes.
It's part of the Wild
Yeah.
West aspect of
Yeah.
what we've got going on.
Yeah.
And I think that's why we also love Oregon, is that there's always that sort of pioneering spirit and the idea of, let's try,
And it's
I liked it.
great to see that stuff coming back. And so
Yeah.
thanks to you guys for taking the effort, right, to kind of embrace and explore with these grapes like this. And Shannon are probably your 2 biggest outsiders, right? That
Yeah,
you
no.
really
I mean,
Yeah.
those are definitely the ones that are outside of the realm of what we normally see. I mean, Cabernet Franc as well.
Cab Franc and I actually make a sparkling Grenache too. So, I mean, also I love to play and I think that there's such range in Oregon in terms of temperatures, soils,
There absolutely
and
is.
climates in general
Yeah.
that why not, right? I mean, it's right here. Let's do it. Let's try.
I mean, we
So-
live in a state that is, probably a third to half the size of all of France, and you think about the range of, I mean, literally Texas
amazing
is
to
the
think
size
about.
of France.
Sure.
And so when you think about that, your drive
look that way,
and the
but-
difference
Yeah,
in
it
the
doesn't,
microclimates, we don't realize that if you drive from Paris south 5 hours, you're at the coast.
Yeah.
We drive 5 hours south. We're in California.
Deep into California.
Yeah. So the differentiation between the microclimates is substantial around this state, and we are very fortunate to have the coastal,
Yeah.
inland, desert, all sorts of elevation influences, and I think we're just kind of touching at the obviously Pinot Noir has been the first true success of that.
And it does amazingly
Yes.
well here. It is
does.
that for
Yes.
rightly so. It is king for a reason. But it is just for us. It's just the beginning, which is exciting.
All right, so let's
Let's go back.
catch up
Yeah,
with
yeah.
a little bit of what
Yeah.
the Gamay in here is.
So
Beyond the Rebecca's Vineyard, we have the three Willamette Valley sites.
So there's Methven Family Vineyards, which is the original Gamay Vineyard that Tom and I started working with when we first started making wine in Oregon in 2010.
Okay.
And then Kate mentioned earlier, we've got the Bjornson Vineyard, this is the first year they've had fruiting Gamay. So
Nice.
This is a part of the blend here.
And guess what? It just had bud break this morning.
Oh wow.
Yeah, the Gamay
Wow.
just, yeah.
There's
What day-
breaking
This-
news
so
for you.
Vincent,
Yeah.
actually Vincent Fritchie, who
Yep.
has made wine here, he made Gamay last year and is making from this site. So he took a photo this
You guys are
morning.
gonna have to get bigger than 4 wines next time.
There's
Or the Gamay features are gonna have to be more than
And John
one.
Yeah, we'll just do
Shows back to back, right?
Exactly. Just gonna
Part
do
one,
Gamay
part
month.
two.
Gamay month. It's great. You got to get John Bush in here. Oregon wine month. Gamay. So Bjornson Vineyard, and then of course Myron's Vineyard.
So
Yeah.
Redford Weddell, which we are ecstatic to work with too. So the kind of this wine is called Le Petit Fers, which means the little irons,
Oh.
and it's kind of an homage to our mentor and the proprietor winemaker of Domaine de Grand Fers, so the Big Irons in Fleury, Beaujolais, and we named it as such not only because he's been such an influence to us, but also because the iron-rich soils in his vineyards have really influenced the way we think about wine.
And we're lucky to have iron-rich soils here in
Yeah.
Oregon too, which is great. So
So this wine is this has been kind of a special wine for us this year because it's got 4 different Gamay components, which is the first time we've had more than 1 or 2 actually.
yeah.
And,
No,
okay.
it was Rebecca's
All right.
and Methven Family Vineyard
Exactly.
for 2 years. So yeah.
And we did a kind of different types of fermentations on each of the different blocks. So we did fully carbonic fermentation, which is 100% whole cluster, saturated with carbon dioxide, and the carbon dioxide breaks down the skins, and you get the kind of uniquely fruity, low tannin characteristic.
Yeah.
And then we did semi-carbonic on a couple of them, and then we did a fully destemmed version, which is more kind of Burgundian, old, the kind of traditional format. And then we just tried to find the right blend component to get them right. And the wine was aged almost all in stainless steel. We had just a tiny bit of neutral oak in it.
Neutral oak, yeah.
But, it's not often you get a red wine from the Willamette Valley that hasn't been heavily influenced by oak. And so we feel like it's a very pure, pure wine of Gamay.
It has lots of structure, but also has like incredible drinkability. Like it's just
I feel like-
smoothness to it.
I feel like it tastes bigger than it did last year too. Like a little more ripe, a little more structure to it.
That vintage.
A little richer.
The vintage
The
is
vintage is definitely
definitely
riper, so 15 has
Sure.
definitely more
Warmier.
to it. Yeah. But also that nice little acid note to end in.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Yeah, I think a good complexity on the palate. Hearing that it's from four different methods, I think definitely shows through because you've got that range of like that fuller tannic structure, but also kind of bright, lively acidity on the mid palate as well too. That gives it a good sense of breadth, good complexity. I think. Yeah.
Yeah, absolutely. Good amount of freshness, but good amount of richness. Like the richness is like there on the nose, big time.
I notice it more on the nose than I am right now on the palate.
Totally.
Yeah.
Yeah. On the palate, it's like way more fresher. The acid is up.
Yeah, a little bit of that spicy pop I really like out of
Yeah.
Gamay.
It's swallowed. Yeah.
So when you were making this, we talked about we're not going to drink it today, but you guys also make a I don't know.
Gamay
like a-
Cru is what
yeah,
we call
there we
it,
go.
actually. It's also
Great.
called Gamay Cru. So it's under the division label. So these 2 ones are Division Village. And
Mm-hmm.
so Village is our sort of line that we had, a sort of accessible, fun, different varietals that we make with different
You can
winemaking
afford.
techniques that you can afford.
Every
exactly.
day,
That you can-
Yeah.
every day you can afford wines. And then Gamay, so the cru wines are I say our top tier wines, and they're still, I think, within very affordable range. I mean, we go from $25 up to right now,
50 is
yeah,
the
50 is the max. So
For the Gamay crew?
no, for our just that
Okay,
division
I was
line.
like, you guys are cutting
But
some new ground.
no, not at all. Yeah,
$50 Gamay.
Yeah.
I know.
Someone's gonna do it.
I'm retiring. So the
We're only
Gamay
selling
crew.
one case of that, though.
Yeah, exactly, and I'll drink the rest. So the Gamay crew is from Methven Family Vineyards specifically, and we
It is
just-
single vineyard. I was wondering.
Single
Yeah.
vineyard
Okay.
designate, yep, and it's
There will
so
be
it's
one coming this year from the Redford Weddell Vineyard as well.
also.
too.
So we're gonna do
A pair
two
of
Gamays.
So we're
gonna
gonna,
do
yeah,
two
so we're gonna
Gamays
be
this year.
I can't imagine that there is anybody else in Oregon right now that has two single vineyard Gamays, a Gamay blend, a Gamay rosé, and a Nouveau wines. That's 5 Gamay wines.
That's awesome. Yeah.
Well, we love Gamay, so that's great.
And it's so exciting. I mean, for those of you who are following, it's going to be fun to watch through the years because when you're making that many different bottlings, you really get to know the variety of what's going on and what's going to be possible. And it says a lot of exciting things for what your choices bring to the table in the years as that knowledge piles up. That's going to be fun. It's going to be fun to see.
I think it's gonna be great for for you guys. What you're doing though is like we made the joke about Gamay or whatever, but like you guys are really gonna get a lot of options here to kind of check out. And these are,
Oh, yeah.
I mean, if you really think about it, other than Pinot Noir, what other varietal from the Willamette Valley that's a red grape have you had any chance to really explore? There's a few Syrahs, but
Yeah,
like,
say Syrah would be my first.
but I
yeah.
mean, there's
Not
really
many.
not
There's not
much.
many of
And
them,
so
yeah.
this really kind of opens the door to what the potentials
true.
are of the region.
And I love to see that you guys and the other people you mentioned are now regularly able to sell it at a price point, at least where it's worth your time to make it, right? Like where it can sustain itself, it can sustain the growth and that exploration, and that's how that body of knowledge grows. I think you see that in areas across
And I
the
think
world.
that you
yeah.
just have to chalk it back up to the grape. Like Gamay is simply delicious, and it
So
is.
delicious,
It's
yes.
so delicious, and even if someone is familiar or is not, so I say connoisseurs are, and amateurs of wine and wine professionals are very familiar with Gamay as a grape. The general public, people that love wine are learning about it. But anyone that doesn't know it and tastes it, like I've yet to meet someone that doesn't like it. And that says a lot about the varietal.
It's true. It's almost
Yeah.
always super
It's-
accessible,
It's
right?
always accessible, and people are always, oh, that's great.
Most of the
and-
negative comments though come straight from like people's experiences with bad Beaujolais Nouveau,
Sure.
and they're like,
Sure.
"Oh, isn't that bad Nouveau?" And you're like,
Times have changed.
"Yes,
not-
technically, but not the
This is
same."
not your grandmother's Gamay.
Yeah.
So.
If you've been influenced by those wines, though, it is hard to step away from.
I agree,
Yeah.
but I mean, the only way that we can change that is both making something that is worth drinking and, convincing guys like you to hang out and talk about it.
Well, if you encounter a wine that you think you're not going to like, you should try it anyway because you never know when
Yeah.
your mind's going to get changed.
Yeah.
Right?
And what's the worst thing that happen?
You're
try
gonna like
another-
it, and you
you-
just pour it out.
or you can try another one, right? Literally,
Exactly.
it's like that's the next option.
Keep trying.
So yeah, if you're a Gamay hater, try some of these wines. Let this rosé prove you wrong.
That rosé is
yeah,
awesome.
Oh,
Thank
thank
you.
you.
That is like the epitome of what you like about Oregon rosé. I mean, it's just fresh. It's melons. It's like lemon zest. It's just
Oh, thank you.
super fresh, super delicious. Yeah.
Well, we're just waiting for some warm weather, or not. You can just drink it now.
Yeah.
So,
Yeah, we'll get it right now. Question for both of you. Yeah, you get one free vineyard, one here and one in France, to grow Gamay. Which ones are they? You get 5 tons out of it.
Well, I mean, it would be great here in Oregon.
It's free. Fruit's free. Yeah.
Here, the Seven Springs Vineyard
Awesome.
is a spot that I think I would be, if somebody said, hey, you can have a little Gamay off that, I'd be like, what do I got to do?
Sweet. And then France.
And then in France, I would say like Enfer. Like
Yeah.
it is for me. Tom and I, we love all of the villages in the Beaujolais. We're specifically really obsessed with Morgon and Fleury.
Yeah.
But when it comes down to what Gamay
We
from
know.
France, we know and we want to drink every day. Fleury for the win.
Yeah.
So
And
like
it's,
Enfer.
yeah, and if we ever had that chance, and we've asked Christian every year, and
Can we
maybe
drink wine with you?
maybe one day it'll happen, but
Who knows? No,
yeah.
but it's nice to dream, and I think it's a good question because it talks about like where you're, what styles are influencing you and kind of what's exciting to you?
I think that this is the store that is kind of has a lot of future in it with Gamay.
So enough about future shows. We're going to wrap up today. Thanks for watching. Thank you both so much.
Thank you.
for
Thank you
joining
guys
us
for
at
doing
Vineyard
this
Wine.
again. This
Yeah.
was
No,
amazing.
super fun.
I'm glad this came together. Yeah, absolutely.
And who wants to ask a question
So
to wrap
after
the show?
Tom, the question that we had decided on is perfect.
Yes, we talked about this a little bit earlier, and I would love to hear your guys' opinion. Is Donald Trump really going to become our Republican nominee?
Well, he's not my Republican nominee,
No.
so.
I think
The world's.
I think he is. I've got a bet going against our friend Matt on the show that he will not be the next president right now.
And will he drink Gamay?
No, he'll drink Trump wine.
Yeah.
You know, there's
Because it's
Trump
the best
wine.
wine.
Yeah,
That's
but,
right.
it's made with
Yeah.
it's Cabernet Franc at least.
Okay, well there you go.
It is? It is?
Yeah, it's in Virginia. That's what they grow there.
Oh,
Cabernet Franc.
God.
I think,
His son has a
unless
vineyard
there's-
there
unless
for
he's
a winery
renamed
there,
it
yeah.
Trump.
Cabernet Trump.
Trump Frank.
Trump Franc.
Trump Frank.
We'll see you next week with episode 300.
Bye.